Back in senior high school, and if you are Ghanaian, you know most public schools are boarding schools. Packing for school was basically preparing for migration. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. You weren't packing for a weekend. You were packing for 3 to 4 months. Clothes, shoes, books, toiletries, and most importantly, provisions. Because no one wanted to be the student begging for Gary by week 6. So when school reopened, bus terminals across the country looked like mini cargo ports. You'd see a single student standing with a suitcase for clothes, a metal trunk for extra clothes and books, a chop box for food and toiletries. And sometimes even that wasn't enough. There was almost always spillover. I myself constantly had spillover. That one extra blanket, that extra bucket, that bag of Shemima biscuits your mom insisted you absolutely had to take. And that's when you reach for the most reliable, affordable, indestructible option available. The checkered jute bag. It came in blue, green, red, white colors. In Ghana, we all called it one thing. Ghana must go. That was just the name. Everybody knew it. Nobody questioned it. But here's what's interesting. Ghanaians didn't coin that name. Nigeria did. And the reason behind it wasn't funny. It wasn't casual. And it certainly wasn't harmless. It came from one of the most painful and politically charged periods in West African history. A time of economic collapse, mass deportations, closed borders, and humiliation. And Ghana, I'm ashamed to say, did it first. So how did a simple school bag become a symbol of political retaliation between two neighboring countries? When Ghana gained independence in 1957, we were the golden child of West Africa. But by the 1960s, things had changed. High unemployment, economic depression, balance of payment deficits. Over 600,000 Ghanaians registered as unemployed. And the government needed someone to blame. Enter immigrants. By 1969, immigrants made up over 20% of Ghana's population. And under Prime Minister Kofi Abrefa-Busia, the government passed something called the Aliens Compliance Order. If you didn't have proper documents, you had 14 days to move. Now, officially, it applied to all non-citizens, but in reality, it heavily affected Nigerians, especially Yoruba traders who dominated retail trade and were active in cocoa farming and timber. Around 140,000 to 200,000 Nigerians were forced to leave. Imagine being asked to uproot your entire life in only 14 days. Many had to quickly close businesses and sell off their properties at ridiculously low prices. Many families were split. The government told Ghanaians, these immigrants are sending money back home. That's why our economy is struggling. So the message was simple. Send them home, reclaim the economy. And many locals supported it. But here's the thing. Things did not actually improve with this mass deportation. Cocoa production dropped sharply. Labor shortages hit hard. The economy did not improve. And Nigeria never forgot. Now, fast forward to the 1970s. The tables turned drastically. While Ghana was struggling through coups and instability after the overthrow of our first government led by Kwame Nkrumah, Nigeria struck oil. Big oil. They joined the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries in 1971. Oil prices exploded and billions flew in. Suddenly, Nigeria became the West African economic utopia. Recruiters came from Nigeria to scout Ghanaian skilled and unskilled workers. And with the state of affairs in Ghana at the time, migrating to Nigeria was a no-brainer for many. Ghanaians migrated in huge numbers. Teachers, doctors, architects, artisans. It was said almost every Ghanaian family had at least one family member in Nigeria. But then this dependence on mostly oil left the Nigerian economy rather volatile. A global recession hit in the early 1980s. Oil prices crashed. Nigeria's economy tanked and unemployment skyrocketed. And guess what happened next? Politicians needed someone to blame. Again. As elections approached, the ruling National Party of Nigeria began framing aliens as the cause of all ills. Crime, immigrants. Job loss, immigrants. Instability, immigrants. Nigerians' xenophobia was further inflamed by a robbery at the vice president's home, which was allegedly perpetrated by, guess who? Immigrants. So in 1983, President Shehu Shagari made the announcement, all undocumented migrants must leave. 14 days. Exactly 14 days. Same number of days Ghana gave. It's frankly given tit for tat at this point. Panic broke out. People didn't have time to buy proper luggage, so they rushed to the markets and bought large, cheap, checkered nylon bags. They came in blue, green, red, white. Big enough to carry your entire life. And as Ghanaians flooded the borders with these bags, Nigeria started calling them Ghana must go. The bags became inextricably linked to the departing Ghanaians, a symbol of humiliation. And like Ghana, this mass deportation had some unanticipated consequences on the Nigerian economy. The education sector saw teacher shortages. Construction projects were delayed. Basic technical services saw price hikes as the number of artisans available had sharply reduced. Agriculture suffered farm labor shortages. Nearly 2 million migrants were expelled. About 1 to 1.2 million were Ghanaians. The route home required passing through Benin and Togo. At the time, Ghana was under military rule, and the coup leader, Jerry John Rawlings, this guy, fearing insurgents, had closed our border with Togo. In response, Togo shut down entry from Benin, worried about a refugee crisis. Benin then also closed its borders to Nigeria, trying to stop the influx. People were trapped at the semi-border and in Cotonou. Some died in stampedes, others from hunger. Eventually, however, the Red Cross intervened. Meanwhile, things were really bad in Ghana. The returnees were returning at possibly the worst time in our nation's history. There were droughts, famine, and wildfires. The people were so thin from hunger, not as a fashion statement, that their collarbones protruding prominently were nicknamed Rollins chains after Jerry John Rawlings, this guy. And now over 1 million people were coming. In February, Ghana finally opened her borders. The PNDC regime managed the crisis with military precision. They set up emergency reception centers. The Tematre Fair Center became a processing hub. And instead of long-term refugee camps, the government heavily pushed reintegration. They then created Mobi squads. These squads, they were used as labor for community development projects. So by doing that, they provided immediate employment for many of the returnees that had come back to the country. And this project also helped rebuild rural infrastructure for the cocoa industry. It wasn't perfect, but Ghana absorbed them. The ironic thing is, just 4 years earlier, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, had introduced a free movement protocol. Under this protocol, citizens of member states were to enjoy visa-free entry for 90 days. So this mass expulsion was a breach of this agreement. The Nigerian government officially justified the move as a matter of national security and economic preservation. They used some legal loopholes in their own domestic law to justify the expulsion. Historians, however, believe they did it mainly to secure a victory in the upcoming elections. Politics over principle. Again. So the next time you see a Ghana must go back, it's not just a bag. It's a reminder of how quickly neighbors can turn on each other, of how politicians blame outsiders during economic hardship, of how history repeats itself, and of how ordinary people almost always carry the weight.